Okay, let's take another couple of questions here. Igor says, would you hire someone with a felony conviction given that he or she is an AA minus B plus team player worker? That's a great question. In fact, I did hire a felon, and I wrote a piece about it on calacanis.com, why I hired a felon. In fairness, I didn't know the person was a felon when I hired them, and so it was a little bit of a trick headline. But I had hired somebody who was a felon and was under conviction, was being convicted of a felony of doing cybercrime, and I didn't know it. I wouldn't have hired him, actually, if I had known. So I'm a bit of a hypocrite. If you have a venture-backed company and you were to have somebody involved on a technical basis because of, let's say, cybercrime, and then you have investors in your company and you hire this person, you're taking on a huge risk. So you have to look at the type of crime, I think. It would be very easy for me to sit here and say, like, oh yes, society has to forgive everybody. But in a startup company, you have a lot of issues to deal with. If you have somebody who was a felon convicted of murder and you're doing some heinous, incredible crime, and you're doing something where they're interfacing with the public, my God, when that comes out, it could freeze any investment you have. People will question your judgment. In reality, if you hire people who are cyber criminals and did something really bad, like stole money from people, and then you're in payments, you better have a pretty good story about why you hired somebody who stole money from people to work at PayPal. Now, it might be it's 10 years have passed, the person's reformed, we have them contained, and they happen to be brilliant. But boy, it is very easy for me to sit here and say, yes, you should go hire anybody and be completely agnostic to their past. That's not realistic. It could actually sink your startup. And so you have to go in eyes wide open and I think really evaluate this on a case-by-case basis. This is, I know, having gone through it, that when I had John work for me, was his name, it's all very public, it was very hard for me because I had to then go to bat and had to explain why my CTO didn't Google the person's name and find the story about him being under indictment for slaving, a couple of thousand computers. And in fact, when I found out, I realized, and I talked to the person, that they were just a misguided kid who, got caught up in some bad stuff online, didn't really steal anything, regretted it, had learned his lesson. And I actually wrote a note to the judge and said, hey, I really think this person was misguided. They have tremendous talent and they should go directly. When they get out, I would hire them again for another startup. But that was because I knew the person and I had a pretty good sense that, having spent enough time with that individual, that they were reformed. And in fact, they probably were never a bad person to begin with. The justice system is not always perfect. We've seen this over and over again. So, if we have a suspect justice system, you have to take that into account as well. Very, very complicated. And we have the Last Mile was on the show, and we met people from Last Mile who were convicted of armed robbery or other things, and now we're managing, co-working spaces. As a society, we have to let people pay for their crimes, and then we have to let them come back into, the workforce and into society. But at a startup company, you have investors, you have outside forces. It's not like you own the business outright. You have people to answer to. So the realistic answer is you better do a lot of due diligence and have a lot of discussions with your investors and a lot of controls in place in case something goes awry. In other words, if it was a technical person, do they have access to people's credit cards? Do they have access to the database of people's names? Could this lead to something horrific, right? So I think a lot of people would answer this question like, big liberal answer like, everything's cool. It's not going to be cool for your investors on a very realistic basis. Your investors will be like, hey, I gave you money and now you're risking it. And is it necessary? And they do have a point. Is it necessary to take on this risk? Are there other places that can handle the risk better? And there might be places other than startups that could. Very complicated question. You have to do a ton of due diligence, and you have to answer it for yourself, looking in the eyes of the person and trying to make a judgment call like I did on, can your company afford this risk? I felt my company could afford the risk of having a felon work for us. I didn't fire him the second I found out. I let him continue to work. We put controls in place. But was not an easy decision for me. And I don't think it's going to be an easy decision for anybody. Do your due diligence and really think it through and talk to everybody, including your investors and board, about what you're thinking. Just think about all the time and effort and money you spend going to meetings, going across town, getting stuck in traffic from Palo Alto all the way up to San Francisco, out to Oakland, traveling across the country, going to Seattle, going down to LA, back to New York. It is exhausting, and it is a waste of time and money. Most meetings could occur with the help of GoToMeeting, and they would occur flawlessly. I know because I do these meetings all the time. In fact, I've been meeting with a dozen entrepreneurs every week over GoToMeeting, back to back to back, recording these meetings and sharing them back with the entrepreneurs as I give them feedback for when they come to the launch festival in March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, in fact. And I can only do it with GoToMeeting because everybody can use any product they have, computer, tablet, smartphone, doesn't matter what operating system, it just works everywhere. And it is HD quality with perfect HD sound and the ability to share screens. And it never hiccups, it never has bandwidth problems, it just always works. And that to me is the key. You know, if you're going to do these kind of virtualized meetings, they can't be breaking up and they can't have poor fidelity. They have to be perfect. So here is your call to action. This is what I want you to do right now. I want you to go to GoToMeeting.com and try it free for 30 days. There is nothing to lose. Visit GoToMeeting.com and click the Try It Free button. Do it now and have your first meeting up and running in minutes. It literally works so simple that I have like little Google Calendar Chrome extension where it puts a GoToMeeting button every time I create a meeting, and I just press boop, GoToMeeting, and it generates a code, gives everybody the code, everybody knows the link, boom, and it just works. So go ahead and go to GoToMeeting.com and get your free 30-day trial. It's a great product. I've been using it for years. I love it. It's a pleasure for me to read, an ad about GoToMeeting because I don't have to read it because I use it. It's literally on the list of my top 10, 20 products that I use every week. It just makes me super efficient in meeting with entrepreneurs. So thanks to our friends at GoToMeeting. And if you're a super fan of the show, go ahead and thank at GoToMeeting on Twitter. They love to see your support of the program. Okay, let's get back to this episode.